How to improve your confidence in 4 steps. Hi everyone, Dan here from The Geek Physique. Before we get into it, make sure you like the video, subscribe to the channel and ring the bell. So, step 1, write down your weaknesses and all the things that you want out of life. If you don't know what you want out of life, that's why you should start with what you feel are your weaknesses. Now I'm going to go through some examples which are in the title of this video that I used to struggle with. So my pectus carinatum, which is a ribcage deformity, my height. Just on this one very quickly, don't focus on things that you have no control over. Focus your time and attention on things that you can actually control. So I just wanted to mention it because I know a lot of guys do have lack of confidence because of their height, but you have so many other things that you can improve. So just ignore it because you can't do anything about it. Lack of female attention in my early teens, lack of competency overall, which I know is a bit general, but I'll get into what I mean by that, and being physically and mentally weak. So once you've got your weaknesses or the things that are important to you in your life written down, you then want to move to step 2, which is write down a SMART goal for each one of those. A SMART goal is something that's specific, it's measurable, it's achievable, it's realistic, and it's time bound. But to simplify this, you want something that isn't too lofty, right? Don't bite off more than you can chew because you might get demotivated and quit too early if it's something which is just unrealistic, right? So pick something which is realistic, of course, make it as specific as you can, and give yourself a time limit because we usually work to the deadlines that we're given. That's why a lot of people leave their assignments at uni until the last week and then they finished them off because they worked till the last week, right? So give yourself a deadline, but tie the deadline into how realistic the goal is, right? And how specific it is. I'm going to give you some examples from the weaknesses that I used to struggle with. So when I first found out about my pectus, I went to see a cosmetic surgeon, and you can think of it as my first goal was fix pectus, right? I know that's very general, it's not very smart, but the first step to do that was, okay, I need to go see a cosmetic surgeon, which is specific. We found out with the soonest time we could see one, which is time bound, and we went to speak to one. He told me my case was very mild, which it is. I've talked about that in separate videos, which will be linked at the end of this video if you're interested and you're struggling with that yourself. But he said to me basically that surgery is probably a no-go because of the case is very mild, and actually I could do a lot by just improving myself physically and putting on good weight, meaning muscle. So my SMART goal then became get started, get some weights at home, start training, and I think maybe I did start training even before that. I can't remember exactly, but it was a big driver to me going, okay, this is now going to be a habit in my life. I'm taking this seriously and I want to work on my chest area, build up the muscle around my chest, and overall to take the focus away from that and just be happy with my appearance overall and not obsess over being, well, scrawny, which I was at that time, and also improve the pectus. Lack of female attention. So depending at where you are in life and what age you're watching this video at, when this was a weakness for me, it was in my early teens, right? It wasn't that I didn't have any friends. I did have friends, but I wasn't the most popular kid. I wasn't the one that was a loner, but you know, I maybe went to cool parties sometimes, but not all the time. But as I started to grow up, I realized that very quickly you need to be around women to at least give yourself a chance of meeting one or getting a girlfriend, etc., right? If you are older, those rules still apply, but you have a lot more options, right? Because you have a lot more control over your life. You're not living under someone else's roof, etc., or you have your own money coming in. You can pay to do other things. So if you're at a job or you're in a building or something which you work in and there's other ladies there, there's an avenue right there. But to give you a SMART goal example, if you're in a place where you're very socially awkward, you don't talk to anyone, right? Maybe not even women, but even guys, you just don't talk to anyone. Have 10 conversations by the end of the month, right? If that's too much, have 5. If that's too much, have 1, right? Okay, then next month have 2, right? It's just like the gym. Make it smart, something that you'd actually do, you could do, you would do, and that you can then build on, right? And once you've started speaking to guys, maybe you already speak to guys, but then do the same with women. Again, it doesn't need to lead anywhere. You don't need to put too much pressure on yourself too soon because again, it shouldn't be too lofty, but having 10 conversations with women in your life, it could be at the shop, right? It could be at the gym, it could be in your work, it could be that you need to go out and put yourself in situations. Maybe that is the goal, put myself in more situations where women are there. Once I've done that, then start speaking to them. Okay, so you get the idea. Lack of competency. This is a very general term, of course, but for me, when I was in school, some of you may feel like this yourself or used to feel like this, I felt like I was stupid, honestly. I was in a lot of the bottom sets. It was only really maths I did excel at, and I had to work hard at it to really get good at it. But maths and IT in school were like my first glimpses of, okay, I am at least fairly technical. I did really well in IT at AS level. And then I thought, you know what? This is something where this is a goer, right? It's finally something I'm actually decent at. And I think there's a lot to be said about being the winner of something. And what ties into that, and this is a slight side point, but it ties into the SMART goal concept, is make yourself a bigger fish in a smaller pond if you have to. Okay, if you're in a big pond and there's a lot of other big fishes, there's a lot more competition, right? And it may seem like a bit of a cheat code, but for example, when I went into college after being in school, which was my progression to get into uni, I went to a what they call like a dropout college, right? Where like not a lot of people liked going there, but they had like a higher education building. And the course was amazing because there was only like 10 to 15 people in the class. It was much better than going straight to uni where you have sometimes 100 people in a lecture hall. So that gave me a lot more leverage in terms of learning, right? Make decisions based on that. Be honest with yourself at where you're at and what you need. But just to talk further on this point, if you're not really sure what you're good at or what to focus on, you don't really know where to go in life, a really good exercise you can do, which I cover in another video, is work out what your strengths are, work out what you're passionate about, and where those intersect is your opportunities, right? Once you have an opportunity, it's something that you could probably do for money, hopefully, and then that's something to run with, okay? Maybe it's not something you absolutely love, but you like it and you're really good at it. Or maybe it's something that you're quite good at, but you absolutely love. But you need to have a little bit of both to have a decent opportunity, I believe. And then, again, set yourself SMART goals. So for me, it was get myself into a college, leave school, and get a good grade, right? I know it seems pretty obvious because you have to do that anyway. It's built into the system, right? But a next thing was I realized that I could excel and move into my final year at uni if I did well in my first 2 years at college. A lot of these courses actually exist as far as I'm aware still, and I did do that, and then I ended up getting a good grade at uni, and it just kind of snowballed from there. Being physically and mentally weak. So I'm a big believer in controlling the mind with the body. Andrew Huberman talks a lot about this. If you don't know him, he's a neuroscientist. He's also an absolute beast of a human. And there's something to really be said about if you get into good physical shape, how can you not improve mentally? Like, honestly. Okay, yes, body dysmorphia and all the rest of it you can get, which is there's always pros and cons. There's always extremes of everything we do, right? And that is something I'm going to cover in the last step in this video. But the point here is, if you are in bad physical shape, bad mental shape, if you are overweight or if you're really skinny. I was really scrawny in my early teens, like super scrawny. You could really see my ribcage deformity. So for me, it was, I need to put on good weight. I need to be eating in a calorie surplus. I need to be eating my protein. I need to be resistance training at least 2 to 3 times a week. And honestly, guys, that's all it really takes if you're a beginner. You don't need to be going like doing everything in the gym and killing yourself in there if it doesn't to get gains, right? Because honestly, you can do well without doing that. I think I've covered everything from my weaknesses. Yep, I have. Okay, so the next thing to keep in mind here is... Actually, no, there was one last point. Sorry, I knew there was a point and it went out of my mind, but it's back. The last point I wanted to make about the gym is a lot of people don't realize this. They think it's just surface level, like, oh yeah, it would be good to look and feel better about myself. How about imagine if you could be so dedicated to something, you do it whether you feel like it or not, right? And this is so not heard of in modern day, right? Because we have dopamine at our fingertips, and this is something Andrew Huberman does talk about as well. And it's something Jordan Peterson talks about. Sorry, is do what is meaningful, not what is expedient, right? Don't just consume, because you just get a short-term dopamine hit. It doesn't really have lasting effects, and it's not very deep, right? It's not very meaningful. Okay, yeah, it makes you feel good. Yes, I do watch Netflix sometimes, but do that when your work that needs to be done is done, right? Use it as a reward rather than your way to cope with life. So, and a big part of this is once you realize all the things in your life you're using to just give you quick dopamine hits to take away the bad feelings of, oh, maybe I'm not where I want to be. Taking those things away can be, or at least dampening them. You don't have to go complete cold turkey and crazy about this, but getting those things in check can be a really good mirror to say, actually, this video is exactly on the money, right? You need to find what your weaknesses are, because if you do, and then you start moving towards improving them, you might not need to watch as much Netflix or play as many video games or anything else, because they're going to seem more boring to you. I promise that. And the gym, it teaches you, I think, more than anything, the ability to do something even when you don't feel like it. Okay, step 3 is you win or you learn. There is no fail. This is something James Smith talks about. He's a famous PT. You've probably heard of him, but he's wrote a new book on confidence. I admit I have not read the book yet, but I did see a really good short where he was talking about the book and his journey in writing it, and I agree with him completely on this point. And he says, confidence is not about your ability to deal with success or winning. It's actually your ability to deal with failure. And it's completely true, because when you think about most people that are successful, honestly got there through hard work and a lot of failures. Yes, there are exceptions to the rule where people inherit a bunch of money or are born beautiful or something like that. They're dealt a better hand, fine, but they still have to play their hand, right? And they probably don't win at absolutely everything. They might win at more things naturally than you do, but that's not the point. The point here is, if you aren't willing to even fail, or if you're not even willing to try, then how are you even going to win, right? And if you try, then you may miss the mark, right? But that's why you should have the mindset of you win or you learn, and not obsess over the failure too much, right? And it happens in all areas of life. Again, you're doing it without even realizing anyway. And I feel like a lot of people hold themselves back so much from getting what they want out of life, just from fear of rejection, fear of failure. They don't go up to the girl and ask for her number or ask her out on a date. They don't go for the job that they are actually capable of doing. They're not even willing to try in the gym, because they're afraid if they actually tried at something for once in their life, they might fail at it, and they couldn't even take that, right? And I would honestly say a lot of the things, I won't sit here and say everything, but a lot of the things in my life where I've truly given my best, I've put my head on the pillow at night and gone, you know what, I gave my best, I've done well at. And a lot of the people I know who are doing well in life, at least in one domain or many, it's the same as them, right? It's only when you then you do half a job, or you're not putting your best in, right? All the people that do leave their assignments till the last week at uni, or something like that, they know they haven't put in the work they could have. It's not about ability at that stage. Yes, ability is important. Yes, it is. But that's why I talked about before having a SMART goal, right? That's built into this, okay? So I've already caught you out there. If you say about ability, it's having a SMART goal. And I'm going to give you a very quick example. There's this guy called Nick Santo, I think his name is, something like that. Essentially, he has no legs or barely any legs. He has one arm and no hand, and then he has a stump on that side, right? He's a motivational speaker. I think he's an online coach. He's trained with The Rock. He's an absolute beast of a human, mentally and physically, right? He was dealt a bad hand, but he's played his hand and he's really excelled in life. There's a lot of other people that are worse off than you, and it's about playing the hand you're dealt, right? And actually playing the game rather than being too afraid to play it at all. And what do you have to lose, right? Step 4, don't leave gaps. So some of you are watching this may play video games, right? And if you do play video games, or you at least know a little bit about video games, you know that in games like RPGs, like Fallout or Skyrim, etc., you have a skill tree where you have, like, let's say 5 or 10 skills, and you get points to give yourself a good base to start from. And usually you don't want to leave any skills too weak, let's say, right? Yes, you might max out one more than the other and bias one slightly more than the other, excuse me, but you want to at least have some balance everywhere. It's better to be a 7 out of 10 on most things than a 10 out of 10 on one thing and 0 on all the others, right? So I'm going to give you some buckets, I call them, which I use to say, okay, am I doing this in my life? Am I doing that in my life? Am I doing this in my life? To make sure I'm kind of covering as many bases as I find are important to me. And this again ties back into step 1. So your weaknesses, or the things that are important to you, will probably determine all of the things you don't want to have gaps in. So for me, it's how are you physically, mentally, socially, money/career-wise, and am I caring enough about my family and friends? That's in no particular order, but I'm going to give you an example from me, just to be completely honest with you. When I get super driven on my career, on the gym and everything else, sometimes my first thought might not be to ring my mum and dad, right? But they might ring me, and I think, you know what? I need to make an effort to at least ring them back by the end of the week. And when I'm being actually really good with this, I think, okay, I haven't spoken to my family this week. I need to reach out to them. Some of you may do this already, so maybe family and friends is something you don't need to worry about too much, okay? But for me, again, no one's perfect. We're never the finished article. There's always something we can be working better on. And I can confidently say that a few years ago, I was a lot worse with this one, especially with my family. But now I make sure to contact my family at least once or a few times a week, every week, to check in with them, make sure they're okay, because obviously they mean a lot to me, right? My money, my career, and the gym, those are things where, I could be a lot better, but consistency in those is something I'm quite proud of, honestly, and that's something where I just keep pushing, right? I'm at a certain level and I want to keep going because, I feel like I'm on a good trajectory. It's just about consistency at this point. Socially, for me, one thing I've learned, I'm 27 now. I think as you get older, especially if you're on your own self-improvement journey, you start to realize that maybe you have friends from the past which are really good people. They have no bad intentions, but they're happy to live a life that maybe doesn't line up with the life you want to live. And I'm not saying to cut those people out of your life, but you've probably heard the term, you are the sum of the 5 people you spend the most time with. And I do believe there is something to that. So one thing I've told myself is, if I'm going to have any new friends from this point, they have to at least be like-minded, on some kind of self-improvement journey. They don't have to love all the things the same way I do, right? But they have to have something in terms of their self-improvement, because that's the journey I'm on, and I want to align with them on that. Mentally and physically, I've kind of already covered that. The gym does so much for me on both those points, and I think that's everything. So let me recap these steps. Step 1 is write down your weaknesses. Step 2 is set yourself a SMART goal in relation to those weaknesses. Step 3 is you win or you learn. You need to have a better relationship with the concept of failure. And step 4 is don't leave any gaps. Play your life like you play a video game. Now, if you want to get started on your fitness journey, there's going to be a link down in the description box to join our next free 7-day challenge. We cover food, training, and consistency in just 10 minutes a day. Why 10 minutes? Because everybody tells me they don't have the time, and everybody does have the time. I've spoken to hundreds of people over the last few years, people with families, jobs, and let's face it, all great men are busy. So it's actually a filter for you and for me to work out, are you serious about this? Is it really important to you? Because you can't make 10 minutes, there's no chance you're going to make it to your goals. So click the link, join the free challenge. Let's get you started on that fitness journey. Just 10 minutes a day for 7 days. And also, like I said at the start of the video, subscribe to the channel, and make sure you ring the bell so you can see more videos from us. There's probably going to be a video here or here for you to keep watching. Thanks guys, and I'll see you in the next one.